What happened to football shirts in the 2010s? We had some of the best players to ever walk the earth and we put them in these. So let's take a look at why a lot of 2010s football shirts were just so ugly. Look, the 2010s were just rough, especially the early 2010s. If you were a lad in the UK, the fashion was just absolutely abysmal. But we're a football channel, so we're going to discuss football shirts. And we'll say the positives at the start. We'll say Nigeria 2018. It's an absolute all-timer, isn't it? The amount of white lads in the UK that were searching for some sort of Nigerian heritage just so they could have a bit of credibility wearing it was off the charts. I say the Germany 2018 away kit was pretty nice. I mean, the Kaiser Chiefs in South Africa just had some sort of interesting design every single season. So there definitely were some good ones, but I feel the 2010s was the first time manufacturers started experimenting more and more with kits. And I don't mean with the designs, because 80s, 90s, 2000s, there were so many interesting designs. I'm talking more about the fit of the kits, what material they were made out of, and also, good lord, the special edition kits. Before I go on and on about this, quick question, do you wear retro kits? A lot of you will say yes, and there's a reason. One, because you like the history of the kits, but two, because they look really cool, and also, I think the fit of them. To me, the fit of them, they're a bit more baggy, aren't they? And there's some things that you could wear to the pub, but you could also wear to your five-a-side. I mean, why do you think the fashion industry is capitalising now on all these retro football shirts and making them streetwear? Because they are baggy and people seem to like them. You know what didn't fit well? The Arsenal and the Spurs kids in the mid-2010s. I mean, seriously, what were they trying to do? It feels like at the same time they were trying to fat shame their entire fan base and also make one of the worst kits possible. Look, I get it, the baggy shirts of, you could say, the 90s, they weren't practical, were they? But come on guys, this wasn't the answer. The argument was, well, people be able to see shirt pulls a lot more. Why do we not have them now where technology is advanced and advanced? I mean, maybe you could say VAR, but it's the point where, is it that important to have shirt pulls being noticed by basically wearing a skin, or on the flip side, just designing a nice football kit? I mean, the only person that could pull this off was probably Alexis Sanchez. But let's move on, because I can just discuss this all day. Let's move on to Liverpool in the 2010s. And again, it's another team that's fallen victims for one of these new kit manufacturers. Look, in the 2000s, was it Liverpool's greatest era of football kits? No, probably not. But the 2010s definitely weren't. The way Warrior killed these football shirts for a good few years, it's criminal. I mean, they had the standard chartered logo on the front, which is just a terrible sponsor regardless, but to have these Warrior kits where they just didn't know how to make a good football kit. In the 2012-2013 season, they changed the badge to more of a historic look. Okay, fair enough. But they also moved away from Adidas during that time. And I think there's one thing that you can say about Adidas. They might make these template kits, which I find so just unoriginal, but the base template is a solid kit, isn't it? Warrior came in and they just butchered them, didn't they? They tried to make it more of a historic thing because nostalgia sells, we all know that, but they just completely failed. The 2013-2014 away kit, just remove from your mind, if you're a Premier League fan, a Liverpool fan, remove that Luis Suarez wore this. It is one of the worst away kits I've ever seen. You need to try and associate that kit with John Flanagan, and then you'll start realising how bad it is. But Spurs fans, what do we think of your kits? Because yes, the skin tight ones, they were terrible. Just awful, they looked horrible. But there are some redeeming ones. I'd say the 2012-2013 one, the away kit, I think the grey one is really nice. And as I said in my previous one about the 2000s, could you just say that is because Gareth Bale was wearing it and he was just brilliant that season? Potentially, but I still think it is one of their nicer kits. But the Under Armour era, it was like Warriors era for Liverpool. It was so tough. And they got a bit of it at the end with the Nike kit. I think a lot of the modern Spurs kits, some are unoriginal. I think some recent ones have been really nice. But for me, Spurs' best kits were late 90s, early 2000s with like the Holston logo on it. But like I say, it wasn't out of the ordinary. The 2010s were just a dark age of kits. The kind of retro historic kits were just getting completely moved away, and they were trying to be more modern, trying different patterns, trying different colours, trying different materials. And I just think a lot of them just did not work. Again, not in a weird way. If you look at kits in the 2020s, a lot of them are a looser fit than the ones in the 2010s. Football kits aren't supposed to be like Under Armour skins, are they? They're supposed to be a shirt. They're not comfortable, are they? Regardless if you're Chris, I mean, maybe he's the exception, but if you're Cristiano Ronaldo or if you're Razor Ruddock from the 90s, not many people want to be wearing a skin-tight football shirt. I mean, to give some love to some Premier League kids, I think Chelsea had some pretty nice kits. Again, not the best kits, but I think the one when they had the gold logo and the gold numbers on the back of it, I think it looked pretty cool. But a lot of them just weren't for me, and I think this era is when we started to see more sponsors becoming, how do we say it, unethical. We saw Papi Cisse for Newcastle refuse to wear the Wonga logo on the front of his shirt because it clashed with some of the rules within Islam. But to me, gambling is the main one that, I mean, it's so tasteless, isn't it? And it's worse nowadays, but in the 2010s is when it really sped up. In the 2010-2011 Premier League season, 4 gambling sponsors on the front of the football shirts. 2019-2020 season, to finish the decade off, we had 10, so it had more than doubled over that time. I mean, who dreams of buying the Burnley shirt when they had a gambling sponsor on it? I don't think I've ever looked at a gambling sponsor and gone, wow, that looks so cool on that shirt. I've seen tech sponsors, I've seen alcohol sponsors, I've seen so many things look, you know, they're pretty cool, but I've never seen a gambling one and gone, yeah, I'm gonna grab that. And I've said in the last video, the 2000s is where I think the humble sponsors start to die out, but then I think in the 2010s is where the unethical sponsors had a massive rise. This is also the era, I think, where football shirts, they were coming into pop culture more, weren't they? You were seeing famous people who had no association with the sport whatsoever. I mean, Drake wearing the Juve away pink kit, Snoop Dogg wearing any kit under the sun. I mean, he's in a Norwich kit, for God's sake. And I think it's the start, which we'll do in another video, of how football shirts have become a streetwear item, haven't they? They've become fashion for people who don't care about football whatsoever. And I think that is what basketball jerseys, NFL jerseys, basically anything American, because they like to sell everything, that is what they were prior to football shirts. Let's move to Italy and see what they were doing. I think the 2000s was such a great time for Italian football shirts. The 90s, I mean, they just always have had good ones, except in the 2010s in my opinion. I think it's a lot about the kit manufacturers. Let's look at Puma. They came so strong in the 2010s because they had Arsenal for a bit, they had Man City, and they got the tail end of AC Milan. I just couldn't get on board. To me, an AC Milan kit needs to be red and white stripes, a nice plain white away kit, and an Adidas logo in the top corner. But then Puma took over, and to me, they just completely ruined it. That 2018-2019 kit just gives me nightmares, and it's such an iconic kit that you go, how could they mess this up? But clearly, you definitely can. And you know what, just to prove I'm not a massive nostalgia fan, I like the 2019-2020 Juve kit, and it's an interesting period, wasn't it, because this is where the pink stripe came in. I watched a really good video recently on how the pink stripe divided the Juve fan base, because we all remember Juve shirts as just being plain black and white, so historic, and a lot of the time there's not really much around them. But in this season they literally had a stripe down the middle of the shirt, and it was a bit of a refreshing look. I don't like the new Juventus badge. I think the old one was perfect for the club, and I don't think it looked old-fashioned at all. But the new kit, it's tough because I don't like the Jeep logo. I think it takes away from the kit massively. It just looks like a Jeep sponsor, really. But I don't mind them trying new ideas. I think some of them just are horrible. I don't like the one with the yellow on it. But this one, it was a quite simplistic design that I think worked. But if you are a Juve just mad fan, then I'm sure you might disagree with me. But to go back to the kit manufacturers, I think this could be the issue, or the lack of kit manufacturers. As I've said, Nike and Adidas, they do reuse a lot of the templates, as a lot of them do, but Nike and Adidas are the biggest ones, aren't they? And it does make a lot of the kits seem the same. In the 2001-2002 season, in Italy there were 14 kit manufacturers. Nearly 2 decades later, in the 2019-2020 season, that number is at 9 now. So the league has lost 5 kit manufacturers during this period. And that basically is 5 different companies' creative vision just gone. The Premier League had 12 kit manufacturers in 2001. 2019, they lost 4, and now they only have 8 manufacturers. And in England, I'd say over the last 5 years, it's been at an all-time low with creativity. I mean, I might be reaching a bit, but like I say, you can't argue creativity compared to the 90s and 2000s and 80s, 70s, whatever you want to say. It's definitely gone down. And I think this is where Nike and Adidas have a monopoly over the market, don't they? They are so big compared to everyone else. They don't essentially really need to make new cool kits. These fan bases became so big in the 2010s, everyone's going to buy a Barcelona shirt, everyone's going to buy a Real Madrid shirt, so why did they need to be mega creative? They can just push a lot of these repetitive ones out and make so much money off it. It's not a coincidence why these clubs started releasing them every single season, because a lot of people don't know this. Clubs used to have football shirts for 2, 3, 4 years sometimes. Brentford do this at the moment. They keep the kit for 2 seasons. They rotate the home and away shirts, so every season there is a new shirt to buy, but the home shirt can sustain over 2 years. And to argue with myself on this one, you could say, well, the designers of these clubs, they're having to produce a new kit every single season. Yeah, creativity will be lower. Have you played the FIFA games, the NBA games over the last 10 years? Because they have to churn them out like mad, there's just no innovation at all. And we'll go on to Spain and just talk about some of the kits there. I think Real Madrid actually did have some good ones in the 2010s. They dominated Europe and they had a lot of good kits that year. I think the late 2000s, they had some terrible kits that they really got it back in the 2010s. To me, and I know this sounds weird because they're linked with the royal family, they're not owned by the royal family, but it's essentially their team. It felt like they had kind of royal kits. They were so clean, they had such lovely colours on there. I mean, what, if you're lifting so many Champions Leagues during that decade, then you can't have some shirts that they had in those 2000s years. Barcelona, on the other hand, I mean, come on, what were some of these Barca shirts that they were pushing out? 2010, 2011, brilliant. Love that home kit. That is proper Barcelona to me. But let's just remember the 2012-2013 away kit. Who designed that? And this is when I'll say star power is so huge, because I was such a fan of just football when I was, 12 years old? I wanted this away kit. I was playing Sunday League football in Leeds. I was training on a Saturday in a bright orange full kit. I mean, 1, it was absolutely ridiculous why I was allowed to leave the house in that, but 2, it was just terrible. And this is where creativity actually was a bad thing for Barcelona. To be fair, I'd say the home shirts from 2013, 2016, they were all solid. They were never going to be some of the best ones I've seen. I like nowadays that Barcelona, they are going back to more of a badge in the middle kind of club, back to the 90s and the early 2000s. And look, I'm sure they have some of the best selling kits of all time during this decade, but it's definitely not due to the designs, is it? But maybe it was just after Neymar left, or it was that Rakuten sponsor that they had on the front. The late 2010s were terrible, and it showed where Barca were going just financially, in a football sense. They were going downhill, and the shirts, you know, sometimes you see a football team and they're playing terribly, but you're like, wow, they have some brilliant football shirts. Barca were playing terribly, and also every shirt that they produced was terrible as well. The 2019-2020 shirt, good lord, who designed that? It was like a checkered board, wasn't it? I mean, they deserved the downfall that they had because of that kit alone. Do you know a random one who had some decent shirts in the 2010s? It was Malaga. And I mean, one sky blue, how can you mess up a shirt with sky blue? I just think most of them look good. Even look at someone like a Coventry nowadays. We're going to Germany and just look at Bayern Munich. I mean, 2000s were my favourite home shirts for them. But the 2010s, I mean, it's cool in a way, but it's also a bit odd in a way. Every home shirt, it just looked like it was a completely different team. 2014, 2015, it was a bit different. Reminds me of Thiago so much, but it's a bit of an odd shirt, but I kind of like that they are being a bit creative with it. But Bayern Munich rarely have a bad home shirt, do they? PSG, what do we reckon? They had the Jordan collab in the late 2010s. And I think, again, this was showing where football fashion was going to. The fact that Jordan had joined along with Nike and PSG to create these football shirts, I think it just looped in so much of a bigger audience where they were becoming fashion brands instead of just a football kit you'd wear to the game. Unfortunately, I think this is where PSG were going. They were trying to buy all the big players in Paris and have the Jordan Club, and they just became a brand more than a football team. But I'm going to finish on England, and because I'm English and I had these kits when I was younger, I can say, what were they doing? 1, they gave us teams with Jay Bothroyd in, Matt Jarvis, Matthew Upson, all of these bog standard English players that we had to watch every few months playing at a 70% full Wembley, and some of the kits were terrible, weren't they? I mean, the 2012 home kit has some explaining to do because that was god awful. My conspiracy is maybe these footballers, they were so embarrassed wearing these shirts that they just physically couldn't play well in them. I mean, in the late 2010s, it got a bit better, but again, they just looked like training tops. They felt so unoriginal, and of course they do really well, especially in 2018 because we had the Hope tournament, didn't we, where we all thought we were going to win a World Cup, which we didn't. But I think you compare it to nowadays, I mean, we have such better kits. The 2024 Euros, the 2021 Euros, that was probably the nicest kit we've had in 20 years or so. I mean, before we finish, we'll just give a few shout outs to some good international shirts. 2018 Japan, absolutely brilliant. One of the best home shirts just in international football history. Mexico in 2014 had a fantastic shirt. It looked like a Mexican football shirt, didn't it? And like I say, that Nigeria one, you can't express how much of a cultural phenomenon that shirt was. But in conclusion, I do think the 2010s was the worst period for football shirts. Of course, some good ones, you could even say some iconic, some historical ones, but across the board, they were just a bit ugly. And a big problem with this decade is where prices start to skyrocket. So you were getting worse shirts and you were spending 60, 70, 80 pound on one football shirt. So naturally, people, including myself, are going to have a bad opinion about it because the value for money was just completely out the window. But let me know what you think about football shirts in the 2010. If you want to watch my recent videos on football shirts, I've got a full playlist of it. I'll put some links in the description. Like I say, leave a comment if you could like the video, if you enjoyed it, subscribe, and thanks for watching.